Let's cross to Canberra now with Parliament sitting today for wrapping up the week. We're joined by Labor's Senator Tony Sheldon and also a Liberal backbencher Craig Kelly. Thanks both for joining us. I wanted to talk to you both in a moment about an issue you strangely agree on, but I want to start on the China debate. And Tony, do you support the Australian Workers' Union in its support for the government's stand, encouraging the Prime Minister to hang tough, effectively, not be bullied by China?
You know, Dan, the Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union, is a good mate of mine. I think he's on the money. We actually need to be standing together to make sure that we stand up for our sovereign interests. And that's critical in these times. But also, I just make this observation. The government also, whilst doing that, needs to make sure it's using the right language and the right approach. But we should be standing up for our interests in this country.
Yeah, it's good to hear you say that. But does that mean that your colleague Andrew Lee and also your former colleague Gareth Evans are doing the wrong thing by talking about Australia being deputy sheriff, and your colleague Kim Carr going the full bottle on Chinese conspiracy theories in the Senate?
Look, I think we've seen right across the Parliament in the coalition a lot of comments that haven't been all on script from the government, and I think what's important that there's a very strong belief right across the political spectrum, because this is actually what we all share, and that is that Australian sovereign interests have to be properly looked after.
Yeah, but if I could just interrupt, Tony, there have been some strong rhetoric from the Liberal Party, but the rhetoric from the Liberal Party has been a bit too strong in its pro-Australia stance, slapping back at China. The overblown rhetoric from the Labor Party has been backing the Beijing line.
Well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't describe that like that way, Chris. I think that's a matter of perspective. But I tell you what, there's really common ground right across Parliament. It must be like Team Australia at the moment. We all might have a little variation on some of the how we say it, but we're all on the same team to make sure that Australia's sovereign interests are properly protected. And the Prime Minister, and I've seen Anthony Albanese speak out as well, the importance of making sure that our sovereign interests are protected, and we do that in a clear, distinct way to make sure that all of our interests are protected in this country. Yeah,
well, it should be Team Australia. It's a pretty damn good country, and we ought to stand up for ourselves. Craig, on that, we don't hear enough from your Foreign Minister, Marise Payne. She should be leading a debate in something like this, and that sets the tone for everyone else to follow, but she so often just goes missing.
Chris, I think that criticism's a little bit harsh.
Well, hang on a second. I hate to cut you off so early, but I mean, I've been sitting here at Sky for about a year and a half trying to get an interview with her. I know she spoke to my colleague Kieran Gilbert yesterday. That was great. But I mean, it's a rarity when she does an interview. She occasionally fronts up in front of the ABC with her DFAT talking points on a desk in front of her. I mean, we need foreign ministers who are the lead advocates for their nation and their nation's position, and she wouldn't make the top 20 in this space at the moment.
Chris, I think the reason perhaps you have that perception is that there's a lot of us on the backbench very concerned about what China is up to, and we are being very vocal about it. And that is what is getting all the media and publicity. Now, I fully stand behind the comments of my colleagues, James Paterson in the Senate and George Christensen in the House. Where we see China engaging in conduct that is bullying, we've got to call it out. We've got to stand up for this nation's interests. Because if you cave in once to a bully, Chris, you only end up getting kicked harder down the track.
So you're telling me that you're drowning out your own Foreign Minister?
Well, Chris, the greatest thing about the coalition is that we all have independent voices and are able to speak out in the media and say things even if they are slightly contrary to what's coming out of the minister's office. And that's a good thing. It should be encouraged, not seen as a bad thing.
My point is there's not much coming out of the minister's office. I say this to viewers. I used to be Chief of Staff to a Foreign Minister, Alexander Downer. Love him or hate him, he was out there making Australia's case. And I'd just like to see us with a Foreign Minister doing the same. It is a worry, and that to me is Labor's most pertinent and justifiable criticism of the government on this at the moment.